There's a massive opportunity currently brewing in the AI space that I think a lot of operators like failing to take advantage of. And when I say operators, I'm not talking about like the career heavy tech AI folks. I'm talking about operators as in people who are helping the organizations implement AI within, their whether it's their organizations or teams or whatnot. And that opportunity is coming from the governance side because when you look at what's happening, um, so what is it? The last 48, back about 48 hours ago, the federal government prompted um, Anthropic to take their Fable 5 offline, right? Citing some security concerns. They didn't want like non-city U.S. citizens to have access to it or whatever. I guess what the initial thing was they tried to, get them to restrict it from away from like foreign nationals or whatever. But it'll be hard to make that happen, right? Because you don't know who's who, and you're not going to start doing like verification. It's going to be just way too much. So Anthropic just decided to take it offline. Now, that may seem like not a big deal, but I think it is a big deal. A big deal because now we're getting to the point where AI is becoming extremely powerful, right? And there are certain measures that need to come into play at this point. And and I think that the battle to lead like AI, like artificial intelligence and compliance and the risk around it is going to intensify between countries and companies to some extent. Now, the reason I'm talking about that there's something brewing here is that this gives an opportunity for a really to some it might be a new career path, but to some it's not. If you've been in this space, you've been trying to like poke around in this space, then you understand that the whole new world of AI governance is going to completely open up now. And there are a couple of reasons why I'm saying that. Well, actually, there are three reasons why I'm saying that. This trigger, this taking Fable 5 offline is to me was a trigger, right? Was a trigger for me to really think that something is really approaching. Now, two things that actually triggered this for me is, or actually got me to think there's something coming up down the pike is recently, I think a few days ago, at least I saw it a few days ago, Anthropic CEO is calling for the federal government to regulate AI. Now, I don't know if any other AI company or AI executive has actually called for that. I know there's been chatters here and there as far as people who are outside or people who are probably investors in AI or people that are dabbling around AI. They've been calling for regulation, but for somebody or for a CEO of a company like Anthropic that is heavy, I mean, their business is AI basically, right? So for them to call for government to regulate AI, this is extremely powerful because now once Anthropic start launching that rocket in terms of regulate AI, and you get like three, four more like AI executives really come and say that, then something is going to happen. And that something is the second point that I'm about to talk about, which is currently there is a bill sponsored in Congress that is, I think it's called like uh like like Artificial Agreement Act or something that is in Congress currently that the federal government, there's been discussions around it that the federal government is trying to pass. And if that gets to pass, then officially AI is going to be regulated at the federal level. Now, granted, some states have, looked into AI, come up with a few things that kind of covers them and, things that help them regulate AI within their own states. Now, famously, we know about Colorado AI Act, which has been there, it's well established. And I think New York had a little something, but other states have little bits and pieces here to help them protect their citizens or the residents of their states. Now, once the federal government gets to pass this, which I think, because there were discussions, I think the act was labeled around like 2016, 2026, I'm sorry. or something, but I don't think it's going to pass in 2026 because there's still discussions around that. I'm sure they're going to tap into some executives and whatnot. And from there, they're going to see how they're going to implement that and push that through. Now, I anticipate like the preliminary, I can't even say the word anymore, preliminary, or kind of a draft to be released, maybe the end of this year, maybe early next year. That's my anticipation. And once that gets released, then you're going to have some chatters and conversations around it. But I think officially, and by the way, it's a huge deal. It's a big deal because I think from what I saw, that this act is like 320 something pages long. So, and who knows, by the time they're done with this, it might be 500 pages because I'm sure they're going to add a few things around it. And once that passes, I think it's going to open a whole new lane, especially for AI governance officers or AI governance, you know, architects or whatever the title is going to be. And I see a lot of companies opening up their doors and try to recruit a lot of AI compliance officers and governance officers along the line. Because when you think of regulated industries, like regulated industries that has the propensity to be biased or, or, have to deal with like fraud and, you know, hallucination that is going to participate in their whole implementation and activities. When you think of finance, banking, wealth management, healthcare, insurance, those are highly regulated industries that I think these people are going to go out, especially banks and whatnot, they're going to go out and do just build an army around AI governance and compliance officers. So I think people are sleeping on this. Now, like I said, some people who've been in this space already know that this space exists, but in the US, it's still hard. It's hard for people to still focus on that because there's no regulation in place. Like there's no like an act that is passed. There's no law that regulates AI. But I foresee this to be a massive opening. And if I were anybody who may have interest in compliance and governance, and I'm talking people who are afraid of like the technical side of AI, right? This is a path that you need to get into right now and try to learn as much as you can. Take a course if you need to, and just prepare yourself. Because right now, especially if you're working at one of these regulated industries, you can help them build the right frameworks and guardrails as we speak, right? Or start practicing how to implement some of the guardrails and designing some frameworks around what the company do and make sure that the company is compliant. So by the time that implementation goes into full effect or that act goes into full effect, then you're one of the people leading the implementations or leading all the building and designing of these guardrails within your company. And that's another thing that helps you be indispensable, if you will, because a lot of times, and when I talk to people who are getting laid off, especially people who, were project managers or business analysts and product managers and program managers, whatever people around that are non-technical, working in non-technical IT functions. And one thing that I see they have in common is that they just never evolved. And most of these people think that companies are laying off people because they want to save on budget. Yes. And also I think that they're getting rid of people because they're trying to make way for a new wave of people to come in. And this new wave of people are not going to be people handling the same roles that they have right now. It's going to be people who are going to help them figure out how to strategize on AI, how to design and build the right guardrails and frameworks around, AI to help them be compliant and, be able to regulate, protect themselves against fines and whatever else comes around it. So I think people need to pay attention to that because it's something coming. And who knows, maybe by the end of this year, we're going to start seeing like a massive demand for compliance officers because I truly believe that banks and all these other regulated industries are keeping an eye on what's happening. Once they smell or once they sense that things are going to pass or some kind of a draft is going to be released out there and the implementation is really going to pick up, they're going to start finding people to help them be compliant and regular and build governance frameworks around what they're doing before things really get messy with them. So you should look out for that. I think people should look out for that and really start tapping into that career space and see where it leads.